Welcome back to the Momentum Sports Podcast. You ready to go over some of these week 4 scores, Derek, and game
Oh
recaps?
yeah. Oh yeah. So
Which one did you have in mind? Where should we start
we got
off?
the Nebraska Illinois game, 22 versus 24. This should be a smooth sailing game for Nebraska, and I didn't expect Illinois to do well. But you know what? Nebraska went toe to toe with Illinois. Um, you got to understand that it was close to get all the way through. Illinois had a forced fumble. No, it was Nebraska had a forced fumble
Mm-hmm.
where Nebraska started out strong. It was like actually no, Illinois was up three, and then Nebraska scored touchdown with 7-3. Or is it? I'm sorry, it's the other way around. I give you my facts wrong. It's the other way around. Either way, it ended up going like 10-10 because there was a fumble by Illinois caused by a strong safety at Nebraska. There was a interception end zone by Illinois. So you got to understand this is a defensive game. Now it was close game all the way through. Nebraska taking the lead in the first half, but Illinois caught back up. Now Nebraska eventually almost had a chance to take the win with the field goal,
Yeah.
but missed it, and it went into overtime, which led Illinois to kicking a field goal and Nebraska messing up and losing on fourth down because they weren't in field goal range.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That game was insane. To me, it felt like Nebraska had that game and lost it. It just kind of seemed
Mm.
like Illinois kept having to come back and respond. And this is also crazy and sad at the same time. Um, Nebraska has not beaten an AP ranked top 25 team since 2016.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not gonna help their case at all unless they win. They go unless they come back and somehow make a blowout in the Big Ten and win it all. That's the
yeah,
only way they're getting the playoffs. But I
yeah.
just don't see that.
25 consecutive losses, dude, in the top
Mhm.
25
Yeah, but it's not
matchups.
what's in the past. It's not what in the past. It's what you do
Yeah.
now. It's just like your excuse to Arkansas. When's the last time the Texas beat? Oh, they lost. Well, it's not what you did then. It's what you do now. And we'll find
hmm
out later on in that game. But we're talking about these other games. I don't think we're going to talk about Texas or Arkansas today. So, but we got our next. But we happen to get our next
Oh, we're
game going
talking about
here.
Arkansas today. They came off a big win over the weekend.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so we got OU and Tennessee. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was hoping. I was hoping for a big bold win by OU. I was like, I got a bold, but in my mind I knew that Tennessee was going to go strong and they're going to beat the
Yeah.
crap out of OU. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all.
No.
OU's defense was good. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the scary defense. Tennessee's defense was good, but the only
Yeah.
thing is, Tennessee's offense was just slightly better.
Mm.
They did phenomenal against the OU defense because that quarterback was getting pressure left and right, and same with the OU quarterback. He was getting pressure left and right, but their defense were forcing like let me see look at my little stats here. Basically two turnovers by both teams. I think
Yeah.
OU had two fumbles. Tennessee had a fumble and an interception. So
And
you
they were
could
in
tell that
key
was a big.
situations too. Like it,
Mhm.
it, it
Yeah.
was not only were they fumbles, but they were fumbles like right where you did not want to fumble the ball. One of
Yeah, yeah.
OU's fumbles was on their own, inside their own 10, wasn't it?
Mhm. Oh, yeah, it was bad. But
Yeah.
that was probably the Achilles heels to that, game is that offense didn't strike. But you never know. OU had their first SEC game, right? So,
Yes, that was their first
basically,
SEC game.
if offense finally clicks, I could see them making the playoffs. Their defense is strong enough to do it, but once that offense is not clicking, they're not going to do it against the teams like Alabama,
L-
Texas,
Let's
or
pump the
Georgia.
brakes on OU a little bit. Let's see what happens in Auburn. I think that that's going to tell us a lot about who OU is. Um, because Tennessee, this was really their first challenge. And we don't really know
Mhm.
how good Tennessee is. It kind of looked like Tennessee kind of let off the gas at the end of this game, too.
Mhm.
We don't know a lot about some of these teams. OU, we went over this last week, is they have a really tough schedule. So, like, who they are comes against Auburn on the road. And then, they play other good teams as well. Like, Texas is right after Auburn. Ole Miss,
Mhm.
they're playing at Ole Miss. At Missouri. They play Bama, and then they go at LSU. So,
Yeah. I'm, yeah, I'm kind of
oh
curious how
man,
the OU I'm kind of curious how the OU defense does against
Into
Texas's
this first quarter.
big time receivers because that's going to be interesting. Now knowing that, I'm actually convinced that OU defense is really good. So we'll see how that works.
yeah, I
Uh,
think it is. I think it is,
uh,
but them not having offense is a problem too.
yeah, it's
So,
going to hurt them. But I don't see
and
Texas
yeah,
scoring like 50 points on them. So that's not happening. But I do see OU doesn't score enough points to win that game.
yeah,
But
we'll get there. Let's wait and see kind of what happens against Auburn, because that's again, we need to see OU win a conference game. We need to see OU,
mhm,
especially if they're going to Auburn. That is a place that you would kind of consider if you wanted to play anybody in the SEC right now. It would be Auburn, Florida, Mississippi State. Um, but still, like, going on the road, that's still a big deal, even if it is one of the lower tier SEC games or SEC teams. Still getting a win on the
mhm.
road is key. Now, if OU goes and, you know, falls to Auburn, if Auburn beats them, especially if Auburn, like, dominates them, like, say that Auburn wins by 2 scores, that's going to change our outlook on Tennessee, you know?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to just
Tennessee.
change everything. Like, these two teams, they could both be frauds for all we know. Like, we just don't really
Mhm.
know anything. Tennessee has been playing, nobodies, and you could say NC State. NC State is trash too. Clemson went over there and manhandled them. Or I guess
Mhm.
Clemson hosted. They didn't go to NC State, but they hosted NC State and just took care of business. So, um,
Yeah,
a lot going on.
yeah. I think we should move on to our next game.
You want to move on to the
Michigan.
next one?
So we have Michigan
Yeah.
and USC. Michigan 27, USC 24. You thought USC was going to win. I thought Michigan was going to win. And yeah, this game turned out a lot different than we both thought because the quarterback really
Yeah.
just did nothing. I mean, 32 yards passing. This is the backup quarterback they want to replace the starting quarterback because he didn't do anything. This doesn't look good for Michigan. Even though they beat USC, it still
Yeah.
doesn't look good. Now, Michigan was known to bring back a good run game. And unfortunately, they didn't do so well against Texas. And we thought, oh, maybe this is not as good running game as we thought. But apparently, at least to USC, we're seeing it is a better run game because the running game, I mean, I have 159 yards by Mullins. Edwards, who was supposed to be the guy that they were looking at to do something for Michigan, he only
Yeah.
has 74 yards, still pretty good, but he had 14 carries, 74 yards. Mullins has 17 carries, 159 yards, and Orgy, well, he had 43 yards rushing, so he really didn't do much, you
Yeah.
know. But USC, their quarterback, 283 yards passing, 28 for 51. So he threw a lot of tips. He was almost 50% passing. Their running back had 100 yards. Uh, but time possession was pretty even. I have 30 minutes and 42 seconds for USC, 29 minutes and 18 seconds for Michigan, and
Yeah.
both had 2 turnovers. So it was definitely a defensive battle. So that's probably why they didn't get that Michigan didn't get as much because it looks to me that they stopped them in key positions, key areas.
Yeah. Um, USC too. Man, I apologize to Michigan folks. I mean, I thought USC was going to run them over. Um, this game though makes me question a little bit USC. I'm still not convinced that Michigan is like a top 15 team. They may be a top 20 team, but I don't think they're top 15. Um, and I
Mm,
don't know if USC is either. USC's defense looked atrocious, and their offense looked to even struggle too. Like it just, for whatever reason, it does not seem like things are really clicking for Lincoln Riley at USC. He dominated the Big 12 in OU with OU. Um, but since going to the Pac-12 and now the Big 10, he just it just looks different. Like it doesn't look the same. And I want to see Michigan more, and maybe they're going to prove me wrong of being a little bit better of a squad than I think that they are. But to me, both USC and Michigan are just teams. Like they both kind of they don't really move the ball much for me.
Well,
What
here's the
what about for
thing.
you? Like where would you have them?
Well, I definitely think USC is still pretty good. I look at the stats, I still think they have the potential. You say their defense wasn't that great, but they still
No.
had two forced fumbles on Michigan, who were running pretty good. The only reason USC didn't have any interceptions because Orji was too scared to pass, and you know what? He was getting
Right.
disrupted.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
like
that
whenever
that says a lot.
if you let a team score 27 points on you that the quarterback has less than 40 yards passing, what 30 something yards passing, right? 37?
Yeah, it's like 32 yards passing.
32. Less than 35 yards passing.
Hmm.
That team that the quarterback had less than 32 yards passing scored 27 on you. I mean,
Yeah.
how how hard is it for me to, when I see that I'm like, "Oh, well then that means they're running the whole time. They're barely passing. Maybe we should prepare for the run." Like it
Hmm.
seems like it's a very one-dimensional thing, like kind of easy to prepare with. I like, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but that to me doesn't sound like a very dynamic offense that a defense should be having a lot of trouble against. Now I know Michigan, yes, they are a power running team, and last year a lot of their success came from running the football, and they did have times where they didn't pass very often. But it just, I don't know. I'm kind of waiting to see. I want to see kind of more games as like with a lot of these matchups. I just want to see more matchups and more scenarios. And I if you look at USC's schedule, um, Wisconsin will be interesting. I think that they'll probably roll those guys though. Penn State's going to be interesting. At Maryland is going to be interesting. At Washington, Nebraska, and then Notre Dame at the end of the year. Like I think that those are games that I don't think those are for sure wins for USC now.
Mm.
Like now that
Yeah,
I
Notre
saw,
Dame.
I could see them losing 4 or 5 games
Also, Notre Dame could be a possible if something goes wrong, could
for
really
sure.
screw up
Notre
Michigan.
Dame.
But that won't matter because if they win the Big Ten, then it really doesn't matter if they play Notre Dame with another loss or not another loss. But here's the thing: there are things that Michigan needs to work on. The
Yep.
quarterback was a backup. He's coming in. He's
Yep.
learning. I think he will get better. I mean, his run. He's very a mobile quarterback. So as long as he improves on that and improves on his passing game, I think that he can click if he works on it. I think he can click and do well because they got a good run game. You get that passing game going. Look at Texas. Texas got a great run and passing game. Look
Yep.
how well they're doing against teams. You do that, then you're going to be balanced and you're going to make it
Yeah.
harder for defensive to take you on. So they just need to work on that. And if you do that, I could see Ohio State being a rival game, being a close game if that happens.
That's
Now
a
with
good point.
USC, now with USC, their offense is good. Their defense, yeah, I think it's all right. But I think they need to work
Yeah.
a little bit more on their defense because there's no way they should have lost this game because the way the quarterback was playing. They should.
Mhm.
They're running, running, running. You know, the running backs getting the ball. Two running backs almost got another running back almost got over 100 yards. So you know they're running. All you have to do is stop them. It reminds me back when USC played Texas in the 2006 national championship. Vince Young was the runner. All you had to do is look for Vince, but somehow he got in and left to right and just just killed that team.
Yeah.
It just gives me flashbacks. Not as good as Ben John, don't get me wrong. That's literally considered the greatest national championships ever played. But uh, uh, but this is somewhat into that line, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, it should never been that way.
All
So
right.
so we got one last game that we need to talk about, and that
Two
is
more.
Oklahoma State and Utah.
Yeah.
Oh, two more. What's the other one? Oh,
Arkansas
no, yeah,
Auburn.
that's we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna take lead on that
Hey,
one.
dude, it's an SEC matchup. Uh,
Yeah. So we got Oklahoma State and Utah. Oklahoma
mhm.
State was ranked 14th, and Utah was ranked number 12. This game ended up being closer than it should have been. I really thought Oklahoma State could beat Utah, but Utah was a little bit better than I thought. I just thought I was like, "There's no way Oklahoma State's losing this game," but
Yep.
everybody knew that Utah was good. But
Mhm.
let's see here. The first quarter was 3-0. The second quarter, Oklahoma State was up 3-0. Great start. But in the second quarter, I think Utah might have
Yep.
they got a touchdown and then they got a field goal, ended up being like 10-3. And then they capped on that to make it 13-3. And then
Yep.
all of a sudden, OSU almost found a way back by scoring 16 points in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
You know, the time of possession for this game uh, you had 42 wow. 42 minutes. Utah had 42 minutes of time possession. How do you score 22 minutes and your team has 17 minutes of time possession? Oh, that's right. Utah had three turnovers, one fumble, and two interceptions, while OSU had two interceptions. This was a defensive game. They took advantage of on their defense, OSU
Yep.
kept Utah from scoring more points than they should. They should have scored a lot more. Utah has to work on that. But yeah, this is definitely a great game. But they are even on passing around 207, 206. Utah had a better rush than Oklahoma State with 182 yards by Bernard. Uh, so yeah, there's that. What do you think?
I was expecting. I took the home team, but I knew that Utah was going to be good, and I was just kind of. For me, I hadn't really seen a whole lot of them without Cam Rising, so I wanted
Mhm.
to see what that would look like. Just their quarterback play without Cam. And I
Yeah.
mean, they look good. They look solid. Obviously, Utah's got a great defense as well, so that always helps. So, um, yeah, I mean, it was interesting too to see. I thought that this game was packed up. I thought that Utah had won, and then next thing you know, Oklahoma State scores 16 points in the fourth quarter, and it's a 3-point game. So,
Yeah.
hats off to Oklahoma State for not, you know, giving up on the game and continuing to play all the way through. They made it a much closer game at the end and made it very interesting. But it does appear
Mhm.
that Utah is definitely the clear number one in the Big 12 right now.
Let me ask you this, speaking of Utah. Where did Cam Rising go before he went to Utah? What
Mm,
school did he go? Because he was at another university before he went to Utah. Do you
I
name
don't
that
know.
school? University of Texas. Guess what? Cam
Oh,
Rising
that's
couldn't do
right. I
anything at
knew that. Yeah,
University of
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Texas.
yeah. I remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
he couldn't
yeah.
do anything at the University of Texas. So he had to go to Utah. Ended up being really good. That's why we recruit the best. Texas, welcome. But
Mm.
anyway, that's it. So yeah, now but we want to talk about what it was Arkansas Auburn. So
Yeah.
what you got there from there?
Man,
So
that
yeah.
was an
Mhm,
interesting one because it was an interesting road game for Arkansas because they basically blew a game versus Oklahoma State where they showed that they're a legit team, but then they showed that they couldn't finish a game. So it'd be like, okay, what's going to happen in Auburn? Hugh Freeze drama, and Auburn is one of those situations right now where the fans are getting tired of waiting to, you know, get to that next step. They had some heartbreakers last year. Auburn did. Auburn almost beat Georgia, and then Auburn almost beat Alabama. And
mhm,
that shows what Auburn can do. But then again, in their other games, their regular games, outside of the big ones, the big matchups, they didn't perform very well. And so this was interesting for me to just kind of see what Arkansas would look like and what Auburn would look like, considering that both it was kind of a must-win situation for both programs. Sam being on the hot seat at Arkansas, and then Auburn, the Hugh Freeze situation of this is year 3, I believe, for Hugh Freeze. Is this year 3?
mhm.
I believe it's year
Yeah.
3. And just kind of seeing what Arkansas would do in the second half, and Arkansas outscored Auburn in the second half and in the fourth quarter, which was interesting to see. And Auburn just they host Oklahoma this weekend, and that is going to be
Mhm,
really interesting. We kind of talked about this earlier, but just
mhm,
the Auburn side of this, and then Arkansas at A&M next week as well. You just have some very interesting matchups in the SEC coming. To
mhm.
kind of get an
Yeah,
idea of what tier of an SEC program you are.
yeah. All right, let me get on this. So first of all, how many fingers am I holding up? So,
Sorry, I thought that you
so,
were
uh, so here's the thing. I'm looking at the game and I see Arkansas won 24-14. But here's the
right.
thing. Auburn had one receiver, 156 yards receiving. It was Lambert Smith, Keandrew Lambert Smith, 156 yards receiving. He averaged about
Mhm.
31.2 average on five receptions and two touchdowns. His quarterback only threw 213 yards. So he was literally concentrating on one receiver.
Right.
Arkansas, you cover hit that one receiver because he's doing all the damage. Do your job. It's going straight to him. He's getting 31.2 average. This is crazy. Five receptions, two
I think
touchdowns. You got to
so
stop that.
he was the one that scored that really long touchdown too. So he had a 67-yard pass on a fourth down play
Yeah,
that was just busted coverage. So that has a lot to
yeah,
do with it. It was just really one
yeah.
big play by Auburn. Um,
hmm
and
But
and
hmm
Taylor Green is. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can go on. Sorry.
But yeah, you're speaking of Taylor Green, 80 yards, 18 carries, 22 long. And you're right. There was a 67 long by that receiver, but Arkansas also had a receiver did 58 long, but he only had 85 yards, three receptions.
Hmm.
The guy you kept throwing to only had 47 yards and five receptions, but you got one touchdown from your best receiver. I think your best receiver that game was the three reception, 85 yards because he opened up things. Now, the other receiver is going to get a lot of short games. What Andrew Armstrong, because his
Yeah.
longest was 18 and averaged 9.4.
Yeah,
Um,
he got hit pretty hard on a couple passes, and one of his targets was
mhm,
intercepted as well.
yeah.
But he had some
And,
clutch catches in third down situations.
Now let's look at the time of the session. This is where this is what won the game for y'all.
Hmm.
Okay, time of
It was the
session 36 minutes.
turnovers and
Oh
taking
yeah,
advantage of
36
the
minutes.
turnovers.
Yeah, you had 36 minutes of possession time. You had
Hmm.
compared to their 23. They had five turnovers, one fumble, and
Hmm.
four interceptions. Yeah,
Yep.
Auburn did horrible.
Yeah.
Let me go back to this. Let me go back to the stat. Four interceptions. I go back to the stats. I go back to box scores.
Yeah. Yeah. Go and look
Okay.
at where those interceptions were too. There were 3 interceptions in under 2 minutes of the first half.
Wow, man. Yeah, no wonder Auburn lost this game. 62.1 QBR. He was 13 for 22, so he didn't throw me. But then again, your quarterback was 12 for 27. But that's what it is. But y'all had two running backs that had 80 yards and 75 yards. Okay, uh, so y'all split that carries. He got breaks and rest, so that really helps for a team when you get all those breaks. But yeah,
Hmm.
Arkansas's time possession and turnovers probably did a lot to that. So y'all probably got short field. It looks like based on the offensive passing y'all had. But yeah, because what total offense was 334 yards for Arkansas, 431 yards by Auburn was the total offense. So yeah, y'all must have got a lot of good turnovers. Now I'm going to tell you this: that's not going to happen every game. Y'all play them
No.
again, that probably won't happen. So
Yeah.
Auburn would have been a lot closer game. So yeah,
Yeah.
that could have
Um,
been closer than it is.
yeah, no, and that's what just really makes this game interesting is that Auburn technically had some better stats. It was really the turnovers, when they happened, where they happened, and Arkansas capitalized from it. And um, another thing is what's interesting about Taylor Green for Arkansas in this is that it looks like that he's kind of a rush first quarterback, and Auburn had a hard time dealing with his mobility. And I think that that's going to be really interesting moving into SEC play is seeing if Arkansas runs him more, that they have more of a running. And where Talon had 27 passes and only completed, I think, 12 of them. And that's not a very good percentage. It's about 44%, a little bit over that, a little over 44%. So I'm wondering if they kind of move him more towards 20 passes a game and then more rushing, attempts. Um, and then Auburn's quarterback situation. Ugh. good good
Mhm.
luck, guys. Like,
Yeah,
good luck.
I
And
think he just probably
OU's gonna not help you guys figure out who's gonna be your guy.
especially the OU defense. You do that against
Yeah,
OU defense, they're
yeah.
gonna yeah,
You
they're
think
gonna be crazy.
Arkansas's defense was crazy, forcing 5 turnovers? OU can probably do 7 or 8 for you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I think that these games coming up are going to be really interesting. Auburn and OU is going to be a really interesting matchup. I'm really excited to see what happens there because again, if Auburn loses that, they're going to be really getting irritated with the freeze situation. And then if OU loses, oh man,
Mhm.
Venables now because this is
Uh,
one of your winnable games for OU on the
mhm.
schedule. So
Yeah.
But
So it's
we should probably move on to some other topics and other games before we turn this
yeah.
into